Good evening. Welcome to the March 26th Budget Finance combined meeting with the Board of Selectmen to have our workshop in the budget deliberation. At this point, and with tradition, the moderator of this workshop is typically either the Budget Finance Chair or a designee of that chair. And tonight, that chair has been chosen to be Rolf Olson as moderator. I do see a question.
Point of order, Bob. You need to move your minutes first, because you can't vote in a workshop.
You need to move your minutes before we go into workshop.
Thank you very much. Then the first order of business.
Good job,
Second
Bob.
order of
Good
business.
job.
Yes, thank you for redirecting me. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the March 12th meeting.
I move approval of minutes.
Oh, it's cute. Second.
Is there any discussion on those minutes? Corrections, omissions?
I wasn't here, so I'll abstain.
Yes. Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Now, I will direct the attention to our moderator for our workshop, Rolf Olson.
Okay. So officially, we're now into a workshop session, and so, just so people understand, there's no votes are taken in a workshop session. No final decisions are made in a workshop session. It's in order to get it, for the boards to be able to talk to each other and get ideas out that way, but there's no final actions will be taken in a workshop session. Everybody on board with that? Ideally, what I would do is just kind of go through it in the order that it's in the book, but what I want to do is take a couple out of order, and then we'll get back into that sequence. So we'll first look at Public Works and Solid Waste and Cemeteries and Town Hall, and then we'll get back into the flow that's in the book and as it's laid out there. So Public Works, was there any discussion between the boards on that? Public Works is on page 10 of the proposed budget booklet, which is it's either page 10 or page 19, depending if you're looking at the top or the bottom.
There you go.
Oh, okay. There is a-
Any questions? Nothing that's...
This increase includes our winter plowing, our extra person benefits split.
That's picked up under the snow, which is page 12, so it does. You gotta take page 10 with 12,
Okay.
and then solid waste is a separate line in the warrants, is it not?
Yes, probably.
I had an actual comment, I
Okay.
didn't have not on that.
Okay. Oh,
The comment on staffing, we learned today that the shared employee with the town of Naples has passed all approvals from the town of Naples, Select Board and Budget Finance Committee. So it's subject to town meeting approval now only. So that's good news. So they're moving forward.
Good.
And that also implies that they're moving forward, I believe, with the contract use of some of our equipment. So help with staffing and a revenue in for us and a non-duplication of some equipment for them. They can use ours on an hour basis.
Pothole machine.
They also go into animal control. Did they touch that subject also?
That's been approved in both towns, yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, was not here at the last meeting, but I did watch the recording. I'm just curious about where, and this may be more Don to you than Nathan, I see him getting up, but where will the revenue for that piece of equipment go? Is that going to go to a separate revenue line that we're anticipating, or is it just a deduction from our PW expense?
I would probably defer to our accountant here, but my sense would be, since it's a new revenue and we want to track it and you know where it's coming from in degree and kind of revenue, I would say create a new line.
Okay. Is it in our current budget, is it in
Chart of
the
accounts.
proposed budget?
It isn't in the revenue side right
Okay.
now.
But we have it on the expense side? Oh, that's part of the CIP,
Okay.
right?
Good.
You're talking about the shared employee?
Yeah, the shared employee and the,
We've got 40,000 some odd dollars in change for part-time labor for plowing. That's budgeted at 1,040 hours a year. They're budgeting 1,040 hours a year. So there's going to be no change in my operating budget. We're going to use
Got it.
that money towards a full-time employee.
so it's literally just a balance.
Correct, correct.
PL movement of monies from Casco or Naples or whomever.
So we'd see an increase, if this goes forward, we'd see an increase in my salary line item.
Right.
It'll be offset with the
Offset.
income coming from
Great.
Naples. That's the way I envisioned it to work anyway.
Cool. Thank you. And may I ask one other question that I would have asked at the last meeting? Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Apologize. I'm a creature of habit.
accepted the first time.
May I ask, just one question? It was just on the road salt and just understanding the increase. Would that increase have been, would you have budgeted the same amount of increase in road salt had we not made the change in how we were doing our plowing?
Yes, yes. We've seen an increase in traffic on the main line stuff, 85, 121 Egypt Road. And the roads are getting in a worse shape, and we're having to use more salt to get the material off the road.
Okay.
The weather's changed a bit. The weather's warmer, which makes traveling a little tougher without the salt. And we're anticipating an increase in the salt price this year.
Okay. And are you doing anything about salt, how much salt you're laying out at the places where we have runoff into waterways?
We do pay attention to what we're putting out per ton, it's per pound per lane mile is what you're metering.
Okay.
And we follow DOT standards on that.
Okay, so it's at the DOT, whatever the DOT. It's not like you kind of ease off of it if you're going across the
No,
stream area.
no, we don't.
Yeah, that's probably would be a dumb idea.
Well, it would be hard to monitor that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Solid waste, questions on solid waste? Martha?
We have one more year in this contract?
Correct, and we have in the end of the contract, we have a 2-year renegotiation clause. And we will see an increase on the renegotiation, not this year, but the coming year. Recycling has been, we've been at revenue zero on recycling, and the recycling market has dropped off terribly for them. They've been carrying on something awful about it, but they've honored the contract. But they have told me to prepare for an increase on the recycling side of stuff, on the tipping fees.
So the decision we made some years ago to negotiate away the recycling revenue turned out to be highly advantageous to us, not so advantageous to them. You may recall that.
Questions and concerns on solid waste? Okay, cemeteries. Okay. And town hall. It's town buildings. It's page 5, 14 on the bottom. All right. Those are the ones you've got things tied in on,
Yeah.
Nathan?
CIP would be the only other one on my CIP stuff.
Okay. Let's see,
Your CIP,
That's not a separate.
the CIPs are picked up under the,
Department to which they relate.
they were picked up under the department areas.
So you're all set, Nate?
I'm good.
There you go.
Thank you very
Nathan.
much. Thank you.
Nathan.
shouldn't have spoken out of turn on that one.
Sorry.
It's not my-
Okay, so let's head back to the beginning of the book, page 1 at the top, page 10 at the bottom, administration. Questions on that?
Can't argue with decrease.
Okay. How about,
No, let me stay on this.
oh, okay,
We talked about joining MMA, and that's in the budget.
It's in that section, yes.
Everybody is comfortable with that?
no, not yet.
Okay.
We haven't, we're still, at this point, we're still evaluating the insurance issues on
Okay.
that. It would, the benefit of it, you see the most is if we do the insurances with them. And we have just, we've gotten their quotes in, so we're looking at that now. So before we go to a final budget, we'll go on that, before we have our meeting, so.
I'd just like to comment that getting reduced insurance rates or better insurance for our staff here in the town is an admirable goal. But I'd also like to say that we should look at the value of providing support to all of our staff with many, many issues that they run across in their daily work. The other thing, we had a brief conversation about the potential of the library perhaps examining whether it should become a town department. The legal fees for that alone would prohibit the library from even looking at it. But we could probably get some help from MMA. So there's a lot of other value in that membership beside insurance that I don't want to lose sight of. Legal fees just to answer the movement of capital assets to a municipality alone. Think about what that would cost us under hiring an accountant and a lawyer. That $7,500 would be eaten up like that. So I don't want to overlook the value of those potentials for the town.
Can I piggyback something off? I guess not piggyback, but just comment on that is, yeah, you know what I mean, just comment, but was the one that brought up MMA, I think, last year to check into it too, and what I'm finding is, it's really mixed, it really is, like, no matter what, if we look at it for insurances, or we look at it for the cost of trainings, or if we look at it for the legal, no matter what, then you have to turn around and take what those prices are and then put $7,700 on top of that. So that's where it kind of catches me back. I think that it does offer a lot, but then we're still paying for fees to go to classes. I think it's just half the rate. Like if it's $100 a class, we're paying $50. We're still paying $7,700. I think we put it out, and Kathy, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. We put it out to MMA last year for insurances for our employees. And I think they were more expensive, is what it was, the MMA.
Yeah, Rolf and I are working on.
Right, but
on
I
the
mean,
health
last year when
insurance.
we checked on that, I think we found it was cheaper to go not with them.
No, that was the P&C, that wasn't the.
Okay,
that
all right, that's what it was.
wasn't-
Well, I know it was one of the insurances they were checking, so I hear what you're saying, and that's why I would want them all the time in with the bidding. But even with that bidding, it's that, great, we get a great price. Now let's just stick that $7,700 on top of that. Because
Well-
we still have that fee, and I know that these guys are looking to get advice, but then we also have legal from them that if it came to a court battle, they won't go to court with us.
No, not at all.
Right, and from the selectman side of it, I'm seeing some things on the selectman side of it that we've had to deal with legal opinions that we may have to fight or something. Do you know what I mean? That type of
I
thing.
do not disagree, Teresa.
So
but-
yeah, so I know what you're saying on that, and I agree with that, and I think it's that 7,700 that just kind of, but I want us to stay in that bidding war with
Right.
them, is
But,
what it is.
but I think, again, I would like to point out, if the town is committed to providing the resources to get the opinions when necessary in legal and in accounting that we might need for all these other things. Let's not talk about advice and expediency advice. But you know, are we committed to spending some of our town resources into looking into questions like the library? There's no budget for that. Would be eating into the current budget. So if we're committed to using our resources to answer the questions that the town needs answered, I get what you're saying.
No, and I'm all for checking out and keep looking, you know, on them and stuff like that to see what they have, you know, but it's at 77 because it's a great price, and then you have to have that on there and you break it down, so, yeah.
I'd love to do the numbers.
Brian?
There's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. One is, I think Raymond, we're a pretty smart town, but I wonder why the vast majority of towns and cities are part of MMA and we're not. And well, let me answer. I think I know the answer. So in some ways, that's a question. So if there's only a few towns that aren't members, it makes me question whether or not we're really that smart. Secondly, it sounds like historically there was an issue that goes back, or was that GPCOG?
MMA.
That was MMA. So if we take the emotion out of it and look at it in an analytical way of saying what's the cost of this, I think you know, time has gone by enough that if we were meting out punishment, we've meted it out to them. What I think the value, kind of building what Sheila said, it sounds to me like the value of MMA is both, you know, there's one component which is the insurance. And I think to just judge it on that leaves out two other really big and very important parts. One is that MMA lobbies for municipal interests in Augusta. And the examples that they gave when I asked the gentleman, can you give us some examples? I know one of them was the cannabis law, which allowed municipalities to be able to determine their own self-rule, which is something I think Raymond holds near and dear. And the second thing is, sorry, my brain, our former town clerk, Louise, thank you. Thanks for saving me on that one. Louise made a very good point, which is that often people may not pick up the phone to get some advice because they know that there's a clock running on the town lawyer where they might pick it up from MMA. So both of those things kind of get to the bigger issue. How does Raymond behave as a town in terms of being responsible for our costs? If the vast majority of towns are picking up the tab for taking care of representing municipal interests in Augusta, it seems to me like we're kind of shirking our responsibility of not paying our share. I think this is going to be a theme that'll come up a couple times tonight, but what is our responsibility as a town, as a relatively affluent town, for paying our fair share of something? And I think this is one of the places where I think we should be asking that question.
Don?
The first part of your question is, you know, I've always said, and I believe firmly that, and there will be a difference of opinion even amongst our staff members, but the principal reason that towns belong to MMA is because of their group insurance policies, the property casualty program, the health insurance program, their general risk management function. Now there will be people who say, and I'm not going to say that the other things they provide are not of some value, they are, but we have on balance, I think, a relatively or perhaps very well experienced staff, and so you're not going to need to call MMA for the routine day-to-day things. There are times when it would be helpful and nice, but where it's really, really helpful, I remember when I was just starting out and had no idea about it, and to call them up to ask them really, really simple questions. They are very great at answering very simple questions over the phone. When you have more complex issues, as we often do, to have to you know, rely on their answers is a little bit more precarious because of that, you know, idea that they're not going to be there for you should it become, you know, any kind of an issue that might go to a higher venue for settlement. That said, though, I really can't take anything away from what they do with their services and their training. It's all really high quality and good stuff. Now we come to advocacy. I don't want to, be seen on the wrong side of history on this. I get your point, and I think that, paying your fair share is certainly a doctrine that we should as a town subscribe to. But I think you have to take a look at the advocacy that they have had over a number of years, and then look at the direction that the elected bodies of the town have taken on those same issues. And so they may well be advocating opposite of the way the town has voted. And that was the fundamental issue, one of the fundamental issues. It was more complex than that, but a fundamental issue of the schism with MMA 10 years ago was over the notion of advocacy and whether a small town that had a different perspective would be represented in that advocacy.
So there's roughly 470 towns in Maine. We're number 74 on the list in terms of size. So we're actually relatively large. So there's a lot of really small towns, Don. So I wonder if what you say is in fact the case. Why are all of your colleagues or the boards members of MMA?
Well, most of them subscribe to the group insurance programs. And, perhaps when you get into the small townships and plantations and so forth, I can't speak to, what the politics of those particular places are, but I can give you some examples. I mean, on marijuana policy, what you're seeing is probably, liberalization of marijuana policy, correct? That's not the perspective that the town of Raymond has taken so far. When you look at some of the tax limiting legislation, I don't want to speak for the prior boards, but I think that some of the prior boards may have been in favor of some of that, the Tabor-Pileski sort of stuff, and that those are signature achievements of MMA. We're working to defeat those initiatives. And so we've had a different perspective on things. Raymond's different that way.
But if we take the cannabis one, if I understood correctly, what the MMA lobbied for and was successful in influencing was the ability of the individual towns to decide how they would apply that liberalization of the law. So Gray, for example, just I think last week said, we're not going to have cannabis availability in the town in terms of from a commercial standpoint. So that to me actually reinforces exactly what Raymond wants to have, is the independent thinking and ability to make our thing. So
I mean, we're getting into the philosophical
Sure.
versus but I mean, your points are noted. So
thank you.
Bob.
I actually wanted to echo on Louise Lester's testimony here in front of us about about MMA and the benefits of their service that she could just reach out to. And I just want to remind everyone of that, and Brian echoed that as well.
Okay. Compensation and training.
Page 2 up here.
No issues? Okay. Assessing.
Not you?
The only thing significant there is, it's sort of a TIF-related thing, is that we did put 100,000 into the TIF for an
Right.
assessing reserve.
Right.
But other than that, the assessing budget went down. We don't, there's nobody here from assessing, so,
Oh, from assessing, yeah.
assessing. So that's really, and the decrease in the regular budget is due to the fact that we're going through finished, actually, a software update.
Right.
So we don't have those upfront costs next year, and that's why the budget went down in the regular budget.
Okay.
Well, I had a small comment.
Okay.
The small comment would be, Kurt LaBelle is excellent. He only serves a couple of 3 towns in Maine. He's been instrumental in helping Kayla Gonzalez become trained. She's now a certified Maine assessor as his assistant. And there may be one other option that could be potentially cheaper, that's the county. But I would tell you, you get what you pay for. This guy is top-notch and in demand, and very happy with him.
Has he expressed an opinion on revaluation?
Yeah, he's the one that.
He suggested
He's the one that suggested that we'll
Sent the
probably need
letter.
one in
5
in
years?
about three years or so, which is why we put the 100K into the, starting to reserve 100K a year for that, so that when we get to that point, when we get the actual bid, we'll have to go out on bid on that when that comes up, but we'll have money in the bank, so to speak, to help offset that, so we don't have to take the whole thing at one shot.
So there's two reasons to reevaluate. One is because the sales prices are way lower than the actual values, assessed value, and the other one is the opposite. Which one did he choose? Do you know?
Well, essentially what's happening is we've been at the level where we've been at 100 to 101,
103,
101 to 103%.
Right.
When you get, and we've been dropping now, we're at about, I think the figures that he had, we were at about 93 or 94.
Okay, that's quite a
But
change. Okay.
so we're starting to move down that
Yeah.
slope, and at 76, you're mandated by the state to do it anyway. So, looking at it from a proactive standpoint, we're better off to look at it and start putting aside, so we don't, so we can be prepared, so that they don't tell us what to do, and we can tell ourselves what to do.
And we also haven't, I believe it's 10 years, but we've scraped by on 13 so far.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I
they
mean,
say order of magnitude, you're looking at a reval on a 10-year cycle, so she's correct.
Yeah.
We're past our expiration date, but I think it speaks to two things: the quality of the original evaluation or revaluation, and the immediate recession that followed. Preserve the integrity of the values for a while as we recovered.
Okay.
But Kurt tells me that generally it was done well, though, originally.
Okay. Code enforcement.
You can sit there until there's a question.
Questions or issues there? We just want you to be busier, that's all.
I'm feeling that heat right now. Last couple months, it's picked up quite a bit, so.
Other issues there?
Actually, Rolf, one quick question since you're here. Given the increase, are you feeling still comfortable with the budget that you outlined or proposed?
Yeah, I feel like we can handle it. If this is another repeat of last year was kind of my first time going through the summertime, so I kind of wanted to see, I think this summer will be a little more, I don't know if smoother is the correct word or not, but a little manageable. But if we do see an increase in the next couple of years, then, I mean, we're probably about maxed out as to probably what I can do by myself.
And is mostly what you're seeing single-family home, or?
It's a mixed bag. I would call it single-family homes because it's a lot of shorefront tear-downs, rebuilds. Even though there's already one there, they're still going to build a new one.
Right.
So I see, and we're seeing a little bit of increase in houses beyond the shorefront, which is nice to see. But it's nothing like it is for the shorefront.
Thank you.
Is Mary full-time?
No.
Is there, I'm just asking, I know you were pretty busy, it was pretty crazy last year, that type of thing, so is there maybe possibility for some room for her to go full-time? And I know that's something that would go through Dawn.
Well, I think if it got busy, I mean, I think like I said, this summer here was hard on me, just trying to, it was my first time going through the summer. This time I'd have a better knowledge of what's going on and a better way to evaluate whether or not it would be acceptable to bring Mary up or not.
Okay.
And then I'd talk with Don, of course, on it.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, technology.
We're gonna skip general government town buildings?
We did that.
Oh, we did it before.
We did with Nathan.
Do you want to talk technology CIP here as well, or?
So the CIP
Separately.
is mostly the fiber.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if we're able to kind of come to some agreement with GWI, my understanding is they're going to be putting fiber up everywhere, could we not use their fiber to create our internet and therefore save $400 and something thousand?
Don?
I think that's a great question. And I think it occurred to me too. I haven't had a chance yet to ask it to Kevin. And I will tell you that I got a letter from the Chief Operating Officer of GWI today, and they're moving forward. So I think we should absolutely ask that question and monitor that. And in fact, we'll take that down on our questions and talk with Kevin about it. Because that occurred to me too. That would be a wonderful way to save some money and not, why would you want to duplicate infrastructure? Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but they're moving forward. It would appear that the next step is to see about the federal grants and loans that might be available, and I think it's mostly loans for GWI. So it would be Raymond and Casco and Sebago.
So that means that the feedback that they got from the
Survey.
survey.
The feedback was sufficient number and sufficient interest, is how I read it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's all good news there,
Yeah.
but that does not make a broadband network yet.
I understand there's still
Yeah.
some to do. That's great though, Don. Thank you
Yeah.
for pursuing it.
Other questions on technology? Okay. Community development.
The bus. Here comes the bus. Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've had a request to actually read a letter that was distributed today through the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Finance Committee. And Sheila will be sharing this with us.
Now, I was working today to outline some of these points, and then Lori Wallace, who's co-chair of our age-friendly Raymond, did all my work for me. So I just wanted to get it into the record, and it is an email, so you'll get the full content. Sue, to whom it may concern, I would like to clarify some shared misconceptions regarding ridership aboard the regional transportation programs Lakes Region Explorer bus in hopes of reasonable budget support for RTP and its programs. Assumptions have been made that the Raymond bus stop is not utilized as it could be due to several factors. The history and potential regarding use of the LRE bus can be more objectively understood based on the following information. 1, not all Raymond residents using the bus get on and off in Raymond. Due to the geography of Raymond with other nearby regional stops, Wyndham, Casco, it can be safely assumed that other stops may be used. In the same way, the Bridgeton service riders come from its border towns. Conversely, other communities might utilize the Raymond stop for residents' convenience. In total, the program is widely used in the Lake region. 2, riders utilize the service based on much more than lack of access to transportation options. The LRE bus is regularly ridden by commuters to areas more populated with businesses and employment opportunities. Riders take the bus as a cost savings due to the high price of gasoline and parking, as well as the impact to the cost of insuring vehicles used for longer commutes. Riders also use the LRE bus to connect with other transportation options, such as the Portland Metro system, the airport, the bus, and train depots. Some customers take the bus for social reasons, to meet with family and friends where there might already be a private vehicle in town. Without a doubt, LRE bus ridership could increase if methods to arrive at the Raymond stop can be enhanced. Members of the Select Board and Budget Committee are aware of the efforts by the grassroots organization Age Friendly Raymond to analyze the needs of Raymond residents based on input from the residents themselves. Transportation is one of the 8 domains of livability that form the foundation of Age Friendly Raymond's 2018 survey questions. Results of the survey are expected over the next month, and the action plans will be developed by the age-friendly Raymond community based on these results. Given Raymond's geography, it would not be a surprise that concerns based on access to transportation options are at or near the top of residents' needs. Once data has been provided to the age-friendly Raymond committees, every effort will be made to work with you, our municipal leaders, to better understand how Raymond can best serve its residents as we age and to support the desire of many to age in place. Additionally, it is important to clarify that the petition circulated during the last election cycle was initiated not by RTP nor a Raymond resident, but by an individual from another area in the Lakes region who is not an employee of RTP. In our great democracy, petitions of this nature are important to support open dialogue and potential policy changes. However, to speculate on the source of this petition can drive a misunderstanding that can impact decisions. Finally, please also understand that in addition to the LRE bus, many Raymond residents are transported to and from medical appointments outside of Raymond using RTP's volunteer base, with transit provided by private cars and smaller RTP vans. Based on the above, it is important that Raymond position itself to best make use of existing transportation programs. To that end, financial support at the level RTP requests is recommended in support of Lake Regions Explorers Bus and its other programs. Please forward, most sincerely, Laura Wallace, Co-Chair, Age-Friendly Raymond Steering Committee. Thank you.
I guess I have to say, and I guess I don't know the circumstances behind it, I guess I'm pretty disappointed that we did not get the age-friendly survey results.
They haven't been.
Exactly, I know, and it said April 8th was when it was supposed to be coming out, but I think just getting that input would have been some important information for the boards. But I like I said, I don't know the behind the scenes of it, why it didn't get done, or, you know, I know it's going through St. Joseph's and stuff like that.
Because we wanted it free.
Oh.
We couldn't pay for it, so we have to go on their schedule.
That's
basically
funny. That is funny, actually. So yeah, so this way, yeah, I think that just getting that kind of feedback. I know last summer, I was talking to a couple age-friendly people, you know, just getting that input in would have been helpful.
Well, is April 8th a confirmed date?
I'm sorry, one more.
Is April 8th?
April 8th, the students and professor will be at the Age-Friendly Monthly Meeting to present it to the larger audience that we've been working with.
Okay, so that allows us to take a look at that on April 23rd when we review the warrants. We'll have that on the 23rd.
I could make a commitment.
Why don't we do that?
Okay. The other thing I'd like to say on that is if you just look at the math, if every town provided the requested amount, and I know that's not going to happen, the $42,500 of town support up and down the line out of a $116,375 budget. So for every dollar that a town is putting in, $2.73 in federal and state funding is coming back to the region. So I would also like us to remember that too.
Sheila,
Mm-hmm.
if I could have that
I
by
will
the
get it.
morning of the 19th?
I'll get it to you tonight when I get home.
No, I mean the results of the survey.
See,
If
I'm going
if
to
it's
try my
possible,
best,
yeah.
but I have to, the professor has to agree to finish the final report by that day.
Okay.
Um,
But that's the date I put together the selectmen's packet for the meeting, so.
Okay.
If I could have it by then, it would be nice as well.
And if we don't have it, then there's a problem there.
It is, because we can't present it yet.
Right,
Okay.
thank you.
Other comments on,
No.
Brian?
You know, there's a couple of places where I'm hoping the select board would consider something, which well, I'm hoping you'll consider, which is to write the warrant in such a way that we can have two different amounts. One from the Budget Finance Committee and one from the select board, should we decide we want to have different amounts. So my understanding, and I'm not really good at this, from looking at things, is that if the warrant is written in such a way that it says to determine the amount that the town of Raymond should da-da-da-da for whatever, the select board recommends X, the board budget finance recommends Y, then the townspeople can have a bit more input into where we should be and can vote on those amounts, because we're all aware of the fact that, you know, you can't increase an amount once it's set. If the select board writes the warrant, so it says to determine whether we should spend X dollars, then we're locked into that amount, and I think we take out a really important part of what Raymond is, which is a relatively small town where the town meeting still plays a key role. And I'm not asking it for on a lot of things, but I think this is one of the areas that I might ask for that consideration by the select board. Simply because I think there are a fair amount of townspeople that do see the value of this, of the transportation in the larger concept of a regional transportation system. And whether or not they individually get value or not from it, they see that there is a value, and makes Raymond a better place to potentially live, or a better place if they're already living here.
Can I, just clarification
Yeah.
on that, Ralph?
Yes.
So you're saying you want to put in a different amount, but you don't want to increase it?
Well, I don't know what the amount is yet.
Well,
but-
that's what I was gonna say is,
Right.
like, say selectmen say 7,500, you know, you guys wanna put in 8,500, but you don't, you just said not increase it, so am I just misunderstanding?
Well, we cannot,
You can put in a lower figure, not a higher figure.
Exactly, so you
You
can't
can
go,
recommend a lower
Are
figure,
you
but not a
charted?
higher figure.
I think what Brian's asking is, is there a way where he can report a higher figure to the town meeting? Is that what I'm? is that-
but he just said in this conversation,
No, what
no,
he
that he
said-
didn't couldn't go
Well, see,
higher.
as I
The
said-
warrant articles
But I
are
think he
written
wants
as
that
closed
lower.
warrant articles.
Okay.
That-
But they can be written as an open warrant, can they not?
No. Not when it comes to appropriations.
Really?
so,
All right.
I
I
just was
read all that
clarifying what
stuff
you were
online.
saying,
but
sorry.
Could we possibly talk to someone about this to find out if it could be done? I'm not saying, I think this could be one of the ones, frankly, where, yes, where the select board might want a lower amount than possibly the budget finance. And I don't know, I haven't polled anybody, I have no idea how we would vote on it. But I do think it's one of the ones that I'd love to see the townspeople have some input, and essentially, frankly, I'd like to have the budget finance committee have some input as to at least raising the issue so we can have the debate at the town meeting. And maybe what we could do is have this, maybe, this would be a good example of, MMA, to kind of say, hey, how can we write this in such a way that the budget finance committee could have one number and the select board could have a different one. Frankly, that would make us a more valuable entity, the budget finance committee, in relationship as it relates to the town. Sorry, I didn't know.
You didn't interrupt.
Oh,
I
okay.
decided.
Bob?
I'm seeing the real question is, right now, are we happy with the $8,500 appropriation that's listed ahead of us? I mean, that's going from 1,000 to 8,500. Are we comfortable with that? It should be the question.
Well, I mean, at this point, the select board hasn't come in with, with their warrant article recommendation
True.
yet. But, the purpose of the workshop is to get all the ideas out there.
Get a read on where we feel. I think we should budget more than the $1,000 than we had last year. That's one place to start.
We have a perennial problem with them is that they are exceedingly non-responsive to us.
and what does that mean?
It means we have asked them to come and speak to us off their presentation on rates, on things like that,
And they haven't.
the only time they
haven't
show up
reached out
here
at
is when they do that, and then they don't even have that, they have someone from COG that shows up instead. I understand they fall under COG, but I mean, the fact is that they are not the most responsive organization. Logic would say, if you take a bus from Bridgeton to Portland, or if you take a bus from Wyndham to Portland, you're not gonna pay the same amount. But they don't wanna look at that. They won't even have a discussion on it.
No.
So the question is, how do you pique their interest to come and talk to you? And one way is you don't give them any money, and then maybe they'll come and talk to you. The other is you don't give them all that they asked for, and maybe they'll come and talk. We didn't give them all they asked for, they still don't come to talk to us. So,
You know,
the question is, what do you do to get them here?
in my experience is we made one phone call and they came the very next month to Age-Friendly Raymond to talk and answer all of our questions. So
I talked to them at
That's
the,
weird.
after last town meeting, they were outside and they missed the meeting because there's something to do with traffic or some kind of mishap that they couldn't make it. And we talked outside, and it was with Marley Turner was the one that introduced us to that with me. And I told them, I said, I'd love to sit down and meet with you guys. And they said, yes, let's do this. Let's work this out. We have a year to do this. Zero at all. Not reaching out to Dawn, not reaching out to the select board, nothing. And honestly, I think I've been on the board for 6 years. How long has this bus been in? Like 5 years, I think. And so I look at it as, no, they just come, they get,
So,
and but wait a second. So on the other hand, though, too, is Lori Wallace's letter to me is kind of confusing because now I'm looking at the numbers that they're saying that's coming from Raymond, and it's not accurate. Because in Lori's letter, it's saying that they're taking it from Casco. Raymond people are taking it from Casco. Raymond people are taking it from Wyndham. So what are the numbers? Are people really taking it from Raymond as to the numbers that they showed us on those charts? Because I look at those charts,
They can
and that
only-
letter contradicts what they gave us.
they can
No.
only
Yes, it
tell
does.
you-
It's the number of people that boarded the bus in that town.
Can
The,
you,
the point is whether or not where they came from is what that's the discrepancy.
can somebody tell me how a Raymond resident gets to Casco to get on the bus?
Well,
How does that happen?
I'm still trying to figure out them walking to Wyndham.
Well, I'll give you a good example. I have taken the bus. I probably take maybe 15 trips a year. I will often drive to Wyndham, leave my car in Wyndham because on the way home I get off the bus in Wyndham, and so I get on the bus in Wyndham, go into town, do whatever I'm doing in town, come back. I shop at Hannaford, get in my car, drive home. Otherwise, I'd have to get off in Raymond and then reverse.
Right.
So I do that probably 50% of the time that I do it. Now, and they can. The only thing that they can do is when a person's getting on the bus to say, okay, that person just got on in Raymond or Casco or whatever.
Right, and I'm not for taking away the bus because I do believe if the people need it, then it should be available there. But on the other hand, as I feel as a company that they are, that they should be reaching out to the towns
I agree
in light
with
of
that.
the fact. And I think it's a huge neglect on their part.
Yeah.
Do I think 8,500? Do I think 7,500? No, I don't. I really don't. So that's just mine. I want to think a little bit more on it.
Part of the problem, one of the complaints that I've heard is that people cannot get to the bus, and I think she said that. Is the bus stop itself a problem? If so, can we move the bus stop to the library? Because people seem to have no issue getting to the
Well,
library.
That's a different.
Interesting.
Well, it's something worth looking at, but the problem truly in that issue, and it's a well-known issue nationally, it's called the last mile. That's what the phenomenon is called. And particularly in towns that are rural, for me to get to the bus stop is 12 miles, and I live in Raymond.
For you to get to the library is what?
9.5.
All right.
Okay.
No, wait a minute. No, not to the bus stop. To their stop. 30 miles.
Yeah,
You're
but
missing
see-
my-
but
You're
see-
missing my point.
No, I don't think I
If they
am.
can get to one place, why can't get the other? The solution is to move the bus stop.
Maybe they would be. I would think they'd be open to that because
Sure.
in Westbrook they
Yeah,
do a pull in into
exactly.
that place and then come back out, and it would be coming down Main. I mean, I would think it would be not that big a deal.
Well, when I
think-
suggested that, they kind of went, well, I
Yeah.
don't know, we'd have to look at the route, we have to stay on the schedule, and
Well,
I
don't know what it is
understand
to take
that.
a left
I get
on Main
that.
Street and come right down there. Boom, right
But
there.
I think what you had mentioned at one of the other meetings is that other service that was being offered.
RTP.
So it's RTP, and I think that's something maybe that we should be explored more.
Well, yeah,
But I don't
but the
know.
problem is you're mixing apples and oranges a bit
Right.
there, because RTP's budget does not fall in under this. This is the Lake Region bus
Exactly.
only that's that. So, the whole discussion of RTP is, I understand why she's got it in there, but the fact is it's not germane to this discussion regarding the
Right.
bus.
No, it doesn't. The reason I'm saying is if we can't get people to that bus,
Right.
maybe we can get people
Get
to
the
the
bus,
RTP.
get the
bus
Well,
to the
wait.
people.
So what I'm saying is, maybe we can put money, start talking about RTP, about putting money into that to get more people. That's what I'm looking at.
Right.
So it does
That to me makes
pertain
a lot
to
of
this.
sense.
So if I rather not put the money into the bus that's at one spot and say RTP that is working individually with people. and then we can schedule their thingies. That's how I'm saying, I would rather take that extra money that we are that, like, say Bob's wants to put in there, let's check it out, RTP, and see what we can do to start working with some individuals that need it more.
But Teresa, I think this gets to the point I was making before about doing our fair share.
I am doing my fair share by suggesting that, because I'm getting to the rural people.
Right,
Right,
you're getting
so-
them to the bus, right?
No,
Oh, I
no.
thought you were just talking about getting them to the bus
No,
stops.
RTP does a lot more. I'm sorry, you missed that last meeting. And,
No, I watched
in the
it.
letter,
I did watch it.
oh,
Okay.
so what happens?
So you're
is-
saying is having them do the direct drive to Hannaford or something like that?
Or something like that, that works
Yeah.
more with the people that benefited from the Raymond people, to put that, again, where you're putting that service back into the people of Raymond, that would benefit them more. So I would rather use that money, that would go towards the bus,
Yeah.
towards something like that. And I don't know how to do that, or what that actually would be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's worth exploring.
So, because I think it was Sue Look that I was talking to, they have a box of free passes, and people are not using them. And I remember them telling Alice they weren't using them because, again, they couldn't get to the bus for either not having a car, not having, whatever the reasons might
Yep.
be. But RTP sounds more like what we are looking for our rural area than compared to what the bus is. And the bus still takes people to Portland, whatever. But I think if you're looking to put extra money in, I would say I'd like to put extra money into investigating the RTP program.
I will say that having talked to people on the bus and asking where people are going and stuff, and I've mentioned this in previous meetings, I mean, it's a really interesting mix of people. Many people don't have vehicles. Many of them are going into for medical purposes, and that they may not have that resource for specialties in Wyndham. And maybe RTP also drives all the way into Portland, but I would think that might be pretty expensive.
I'm also thinking possibly the RTP, and again, I'm sorry if I'm veering off, might have more drivers, more people on staff that we would be able to tap into them.
And I'm sure they have a scale based on need as far as fees.
Right.
Okay.
So
No, I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
worth-
So
I
that's,
think
I'm
it's-
just putting that out there.
Why don't we let age-friendly develop that?
Okay.
There you go.
Other,
Sorry, Rolf.
other points on there. Moving right along. Public safety, fire department.
I just have a general question. Have we settled the contract negotiations so that we can actually have a budget, a firm budget?
We have the contract has not been finalized yet, but when the budget was drafted, it anticipated increases, so
This will cover it.
it should cover where that ends up. But
Okay.
it is not a completed item yet.
Okay. And my other question still stands is, without the specifics, because I know we haven't gone there, is do we as a town feel that this will assist us in attracting and retaining employees in public safety? That to me is a fundamental question.
Be more specific to me, the union contract or the entire?
The salary, the union, when we've lost people over 50 cents an hour to another town, it just kills me.
I think there's more to it than 50
That
cents, to
doesn't
be
make
honest, I
sense.
really
I mean,
do.
the union
But
contract
I
is
don't
only,
just-
is only a small percentage of the number of people in the fire department.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
The rest is picked up under other, under other salaries. So there is increases that are built into there too, but to answer your question, no, in total, it's not a complete deal. It's still being, things like on the total retention packages, what needs to be done there is still being worked on.
I wanted to say, though, that I'm optimistic on both points, that we're going to have
And that's
resolution
what I'm,
shortly,
yeah,
and that
it's
we're going to have
assist in the
sufficient
problem.
funds, and if we don't, we're going to have a plan to address how we move forward. So we're optimistic on all points. Do you agree?
Yes, and it's not just 50.
Well,
It's a lot more, yeah.
And that's, relatively recently, we've been, and it did drag on some for various reasons, but on both parties, so it's, we've had some movement since last time we met.
Other questions on fire? That's fire and rescue is picked up under one altogether, right?
Yes.
Yep.
You okay at CIP on that one also?
Yes, yes, CIP.
All right.
CIP, can we talk about CIP?
Yep.
I see that fire department has $75,000 being deposited into the CIP account, proposed this coming calendar year. That does not include the $50,000 from Public Works that they're paying back to the CIP?
No, that'll be a transfer from Public Works to there, so
So that's not
It's a direct
included in
line
the
transfer.
75?
that's not part of the 75.
We have, from time to time, not frequently, but as you know, from time to time, we have made, I guess, interdepartmental transfers within the CIP to mitigate costs of short-term borrowing and so forth. So that's been a great thing between, well, mostly from fire to public safety, to public works rather, from public safety to public works. But it has been a helpful thing, and the chief's been cooperative on that, and so I think the Public Works Department, the Public Safety Department have worked back and forth.
Yes.
And, recently there was a relatively new surplus truck that didn't meet our needs that we were able to go to Public Safety with. It met their needs perfectly. So there has been a little bit of, I think, back and forth in a really positive way between the departments. Horse trading, if you like, which I'm pleased to say is I think a good thing. And so so Bruce was very happy to make Nathan a short-term, no-interest loan. Right?
Correct.
Other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, animal control.
Thank you, Chief.
I think we should have it.
The only thing I brought up was the MMA,
Insurance.
AAA+++ plan that this person seems to have, and although we can't negotiate that, because that comes under the Casco's
Right.
benefits package.
So the question I think Marshall asked at the beginning is where are the other towns on it? The other towns are pending town meeting approval. It has passed through the Budget Committee and Boards of Selectmen. Now, I should also tell you there was some discussion about the current ACO, selecting that plan, and that was corrected for me. A more accurate portrayal would be that the outgoing Casco town manager strongly recommended her to take that plan. So she didn't know. She really didn't know what was best for her. But he knew what was best for her and suggested Casco's plan. And he says also, just for information, that's a historic plan. I mean, you can't buy it anymore in the free world. You can't enter that plan. And he doesn't know how much longer it will be available even in Casco. I mean, it's a plan that very few towns enjoy, and all school districts still enjoy.
Okay, thank you.
As part of the agreement, we're paying for fuel costs for this vehicle to be
We
operated.
split the fuel costs amongst the towns.
Is that,
We split all the expenses, the acquisition, the fuel cost, all the equipment. So it's a true three-town effort, and our statistics are very similar town to town. I mean, you can see one town spike, occasionally if they have well, Casco had a very unusual cat issue one time, and there were, like 60 cats, and so it was a very complicated thing. Raymond has had some really foul problems in the past, and so that caused a situation that was nothing to crow about for us. So we had to.
Did you work on this beforehand? Did you work on this beforehand?
oh, you're out of control.
He's appearing Friday night at La Mexicana.
This is animal control.
So it's split evenly between the towns.
Guess we didn't get them going on
Do
the
they
cemetery.
fuel out of our tank?
Huh?
Do they fuel out of our tank?
Yes, yeah, I have a separate key system, so we
And
know
then
just
where
that
the water-
vehicle.
Other questions on animal control?
Brian has something.
Yeah, so again, wasn't at the meeting, but did watch. This has always been a hot button for me just because of the cost of what seems to be a relatively small number of animals managed. this is 68% increase in the budget. And I'm not sure what we get for that increase. I know we're getting now a full-time person between 3 towns, but I'm not, where's the value added?
The value added, that's a great question. I would say the value add here is that rather than having no ACO, which is the case of some of our towns around us because they have come to us to talk about further regionalization combining with us, we have had for the past several years, at least half dozen years, we've had a stable operation that hasn't required us to be out looking constantly for people. So we have a reliable response and a person who is a committed person to this position. And so yes, it's an increase. It's a, relatively speaking, a one-time increase as we, geared up for the capital equipment we needed. The vehicle, obviously is a big piece of that. Obviously going to a full-time position, no question, that's a big jump. But it's an evolution, and I think it's a worthy investment, and I think it's an investment in our future. It's something that is going to enable us to have high-quality, reliable services moving forward, and I think it's rewarding somebody who has done a good job and has been on call 24/7, 365 days a year for 6 or 7 years, and has performed the job well. So I guess if you want to call that a reward for a job well done, call it that, but I think it's also an evolution, and we're trying to do it the Raymond way, which is now the Casco and Naples way, by sharing the costs among 3 towns. So the other towns are absolutely thrilled with this and have already gobbled it through. The one town that was of some question was us because of our nature and the way that we do it. Tend to be a, to our benefit, I think, a town that scrutinizes things really closely. But it certainly is an increase. It's a large increase, and but I think it's a good investment. And if we don't go along, I wonder what it is we're going to do, because we aren't going to have anybody. Nobody wants to do this job.
Tom, just one follow-up. You said a one-time increase, but wouldn't this be the exact same? Wouldn't you be looking at a budget of 32,312?
Yeah, but I'm saying a one-time jump up to that level.
Okay.
Level.
But now, but it will be at this level going
Yeah,
forward.
yeah. We're not going to see whatever you said, a 68%. Is that what you said? 68% increase next year? No, it'll be level or thereabouts.
Rob, can I add?
Oh.
Can't see me. I'll just add that I used it recently, a couple weeks ago, and I'd never used it before. And she was extremely helpful. I had 2 missing dogs, and she gave all kinds of advice. She was very on top of it. The next day, she even called me to check in to see how it went, and offered more advice, things like that. So she does do a very good job. She's very on top of her game and everything. I think she did great. So I think she's a huge asset.
So maybe the question I should be asking is, the one piece of data we have is from the shelter, the Animal Refuge League. Do we know how many interactions like what Crystal had she sees in a year out of Raymond? Like how many events are there?
They used
Calls.
to put that on here.
Calls, thank you.
Yes, we have that information. If it isn't in the book, we can.
Usually we had it in here.
We can provide it to you, but yeah,
No, we don't, there's no call.
There was one rabbit.
Yeah, but she-
Yeah, that's at
Looking
the
for
Animal
it.
Refuge, yeah.
She is dispatched out of Cumberland County SO.
Yeah.
So when you want an animal control response, I could call her directly on her cell phone, and the town managers can reach her that way. But a citizen who needs to reach her would reach her through calling the dispatch office. The dispatch office would then dispatch her to the call, and they keep detailed records of all calls by town, by incident, any way you like it.
If it's not too much of a trouble, I just would be interested how many, because I think my guess is I'm underestimating how much is involved with this, and that would be great. And I just want to comment that having watched the video, I'm so glad she's linked into the deputy system, so they can say, I'm going to XYZ address, and they can say, be careful, you should have a deputy with you or something. I think that's great.
Perhaps our clerk could tell us how many dogs there are in Raymond, roughly.
Oh,
Can
yes.
you tell us?
How many dogs?
Just roughly.
There's over 700.
What?
How many rabbits? No, just joking.
Yeah, but do they use the bus?
missed it.
Okay.
That's where the counts are coming from.
Other questions on animal
Oh, good.
control.
There's a rescue dog. All right.
Yeah, they have to ride it to the shelter.
Okay. Moving on to
Recreation.
recreation.
Any cemeteries?
Well,
It was present.
Yes.
I'd just like to say that, we missed Beth Clark at the last meeting, and unfortunately, her mom, Carol Fogg, passed away. Carol Fogg was a big help and volunteer in age-friendly Raymond. She actually almost personally did all the data entry for the surveys. So I'd just like to give a shout out to the Clark family and to also Carol Fogg. She'll be missed.
Wow.
I think if I can go into the audience, Lee, you had the ball on this one,
And which one?
on that Raymond Rat. You can, don't stand up. The question is, what insurances have gone up?
So we have an insurance policy that covers.
You do have to go to the...
I'm sorry.
You knew
I
it.
tried
Your
to
voice
keep
was
you
coming.
off the stage.
Shame on you.
That's all right. We have a liability insurance and also a medical insurance in
Okay.
case someone does get injured, so those
They
are the
both
two
took
ones.
a jump, or?
They all consistently rise, and we've been trying every year to cover them. The other thing that we've had to do more recently, maybe 3-4 years ago, was get a board of directors insurance, which we did not have before, and that runs us about $1,000.
I thought Beth had said something about trying to check through the town to see, in one of her notes that she sent to me in an email, or maybe in the overall email, was they were trying to check with the town to see if we can get the insurance any cheaper.
She did.
She did? Is it a possibility?
I don't believe that it was going to work out, but it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to see what other avenues we can go, but it's hard to find rec programs. Baseball has their baseball in through their leagues where they get insurance through the programs that they sign up for, and we don't have that luxury.
Have we checked with other towns to see what they do?
They're all town, most
Oh,
of them are
okay.
town departments.
They're not self-insured, are they?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Well, that's quite a deal, $19,300 for recreation service in town of Raymond. Can't beat that.
Yeah, Ralph, if I can just build on that, this gets to one of the other key things about Raymond and who we are. We do a lot, I think we do a lot with a little, and we will, and I'm actually very proud of that fact, that we do so much with a relative little. We do it with volunteers, and these are organizations that I think all contribute strongly to who Raymond is and provide, especially for the youth. And I would add, I think the historical organizations, the library, the environmental groups that we have, age-friendly transportation, like all of these things, we do a lot of it with volunteers, and I think all of them are very judicious with how they spend town funds. And I think in this particular case, I know there's some increases. I don't have any kids in the system, so I don't have a dog in this hunt, or whatever they say that. Is that the right one? Anyway, I don't have any personal interest in it, but I do think that the increases are warranted, and I think we get amazing value, to echo Bob, for $19,300 to provide the recreation that we do. And I think that all the volunteers that are involved in all these organizations should be thanked.
Sheila?
Just one thing on the Raymond Rattlers. We're looking at $1,600 in this year's budget, and my education on the fees that are gathered. And last year we gathered $2,105.16 in snowmobile
I don't know where
fees.
the 16 cents came from.
I know. But
Overcharged,
why then aren't we
Late fee.
giving that back to them?
Because that's not what they couldn't use it all. They've asked for what they could use.
Or why do we give it to them at all? Is that your question?
No. Why aren't we giving all of it to them?
Because, as I say, they've asked for what they can use.
So their additional $7,100 that they struggle to fundraise every year, that wouldn't help them?
They've actually been so good with that 1,600, I think, or one year I think it was 2,000. So that's why I get hot under the collar when we turn around and say, no, let's take their money. Then I have a problem with that because the town is actually making money off of it and they're not taking all of it. I would say go ahead and give it back to them too, because if that's the way the wash was supposed to be. But somebody has reminded me that they're going to come forward and ask for what they need. Then they have to figure out what their budget is and stuff like that. So that's why, again, let's not give them a hard time.
You know, I asked a little bit, like maybe we could actually see an income and expense statement from them to get a better handle on what's going on with their finances. But if my understanding is this is supposed to be a wash to that particular organization, and maybe we don't want to say predict a larger amount in advance, but after the year is over, to give them the excess, I think is a perfectly reasonable question. So I'm just throwing that out there because I know, being involved in many volunteer organizations, you know, $100 that I don't have to ask a business for makes my life so much easier.
They're using their own gas and filling their own gas things up for different machines. So
To be clear, this is a personal property tax that's being assessed. Is that not correct?
No,
No,
it
these are
is
fees people
that comes from the snowmobile registration.
And has the state said that there should be a reimbursement back to snowmobile clubs, or is that something we as a town have said we wanted to do?
I don't know about, and perhaps the clerk knows if there's any governing law, but I would tell you that in practice, everywhere I'm familiar with, it's the custom. And so it's pretty much how the trail networks are maintained throughout Maine, which, as you know, I always say are multi-use trails, and although principally snowmobile trails, but that trail network is maintained through those monies.
That in itself is an economic driver in the area. People can go to Sunset on the lake and, you know, the gas
You
station.
can ride from here to Rangeley if you want to.
You know, so if you follow that custom, at the beginning of the next year, that would be an additional 500 we should be giving back to them to maintain our trails. So I just raised that point. If it's supposed to be that way, then I would suggest we look at doing it that way.
I would say it would be great to get a more complete profit and loss.
Like, they weren't even clear if they had a dues-paying revenue system in their organization. You know, we did find out eventually, but.
Right. Well, it is a club, and it's a social club as well, and so I know that there's probably certain things that will, you know.
So I just throw that out there for consideration.
Do they have to put in this request? Can't we just make it a wash?
No, they have to put it in the request because they're not a town department. So in order to get the money, they have to put in a request.
And they have to put a number on it, right? So they're not going to know what the real number coming in is.
Other than
Until
the fact that, you know, they can see the town, you know, they can read.
They can estimate
Yeah.
based on the previous
Yeah.
year. But there's no way to just take it off.
you never know how much snow we're going to get, so you don't know. So yeah, so that can be kind of.
But
You know,
if
the
I'm
problem you get into is a lot of people don't register their machines until they get snow, and if you don't get snow, then
Right.
If I'm correct, last year, I think Selectman Bruno increased the baseball unilaterally. So it could be done, I believe, if the select board decides that they want to have a higher amount.
Yeah, and kind of hedging your bets and waiting till the year is done and then
Yes.
providing that leftover, I guess.
Within the same-
So that's just where I'm coming from.
the next one's gonna be fun.
I personally don't like snowmobiles.
Other questions on recreation? Library?
Well, let's start by saying that the library is excellent value for what they do and provide to the town for all age groups, you know, from our infant, youth, and teen opportunities to our elder opportunities as well. And yeah, that's a substantial jump, $13,500 jump in request. I think we need to look at the value.
Right.
I decided to just take a look at what other towns surrounding us pay for their library, and I thought the easiest way to do it was on a per capita basis. So Gray has the highest cost per capita of $38.12 if their proposed, this is these are both 2018, 2019, and 2019, mostly 2018, 2019 budgets. So they're at 3812, Wyndham's at 2791, Casco's at 1773, Bridgeton is at 1560. If we go to 73,500, Raymond would be at $16.23 per capita, based off, I'm using census data for the numbers. So
What's your denominator?
my denominator is the population
The
as
number,
reported.
what is the number?
Oh, 4526 for Raymond. So I took the 73.5 divided by 4526 and got 1623. So it seems like it's still really at the low end, and I mean I just use that as a quantitative reference because I was trying to figure out. I mean, Wyndham's budget is $497,099, so they're spending $500,000 on there, and they're larger. They have a number of different locations, but I think we get pretty good value. So I just thought I'd give that kind of context.
I'm gonna jump in here. Back 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, the library was at 35,000. And we started to hit a rough economic time, and the select board decided to take it up to 50 and then to 60, okay, as a way to save the library. The problem that I'm having with today's numbers is that they've doubled their assets, cash assets. It now it's almost $200,000. And they have sufficient money to provide $17,000 in additional funding. I have a real difficulty with having taxpayer money going into a savings account at the library. And I think that 60,000 is a reasonable level. I don't see us taking it down, but I see us, having a real hesitation of taking it up anymore because of the wealth that is the library has accumulated over the last 18 months.
And I would just like to add, and again, with the caveat, I'm extremely biased.
And you shouldn't be talking about it if you're going to abstain, but we'll let you do that.
That
Now's the time.
the town money doesn't go into a savings account. Every dime gets spent.
No, it offsets expenses that you would normally take out of your savings account.
The assets that you're referring to are capital asset reserves.
No, I
And
don't, I would disagree with that.
I would have a real problem if our roof fails and we hadn't done so. We'd be here looking for $50,000 to fix the roof. So again, we can be poor and we can have every dime being spent on operations. That's perfectly possible. But one capital failure and we're out of business.
So I think that the town has
what-
proven that they've stepped in and helped you before by taking it up to 60,000 where it is now. I think the town will stand behind the library. It's just the town has to be reasonable in that.
I agree with that. I think what happens is I would rather see that 17,000 come out of your account and know that the town is here behind you. Because I think it was Lee that gave the presentation that says in case you have windows that have to be replaced or a roof or whatever. But in that case, you've got the money in there that I would like to see the town say, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, we can't use it this way, is if there is such a situation is that you would come to the town to say, yes, we need money to have this fixed. And I would love to say yes on that. But to have it, and I'm the one that spoke up last year and said, I had a problem last year taking the extra money that you guys had made and sticking it into a savings account and upping it. So, and I think I was the only one, I don't know, on that one, but
No, I was with you on that.
okay.
I appreciate your perspective. Certainly.
Sorry,
do.
I jumped in.
Your tax return shows 205,000 in cash, savings, and investments. Got nothing to do with hard assets.
Right.
It's got to do with liquidity. And that's what I have a problem with.
Okay.
From my perspective, there was kind of an either-or scenario presented.
Right.
And the one scenario had about a $3,000 increase. The other took it up to $73,000. The differential there was that you wanted to add additional paid staff.
We wanted to increase hours of current staff.
But my heartburn came from the fact that I saw no increase in your fundraising. I saw no increase in your, what do you call it? Your annual appeal and things like that. So everything was coming from there. If indeed you want to do that, that's a laudable thing. But you have the money in the bank to do that right now. So if you want to do that, then pay that out of there and see how it goes, and then put the push on, the push out on the appeal side too, to say, hey, these are, because, it appears to me to be like a Field of Dreams thing. If you put in this extra paid staff, but you're not adding any new hours or anything like that, all of a sudden more people are going to come. Maybe they will, and if they do, then there should be an offset with additional fundraise, with additional appeal money and things like that.
Well,
So
I
it
think
should help fuel itself that way.
I think the major difference in our income stream is, again, if you realistically look at where the annual appeal numbers, now that they're correct, have come from, we have increased annual appeal each year, is our grant writing. And that's where the income stream is coming from.
But your annual appeal in the budget is showing the same.
Is last year?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're saying it's increasing, but you're not showing it as increasing. You're showing it exactly the same. That's my point. Is you're saying that you're seeing an extra money coming in on the appeal, but yet you're showing it flatlined in your budget. If what you're saying is true, I should have seen a bump up in that, which would have then meant what you needed to come back in would be less anyway.
So 30 to 35,000
No,
is
it's
not a
all, it
bump?
showed 30. Showed 30 to 30.
Oh, okay.
That's what you're showing.
Because you're not looking at the business line, the total
I'm
amount?
looking at the appeal line.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying is, you're saying that the people want this, but they're not willing to pay for it.
Absolutely correct.
So that's what I'm saying, at some point, you either have to make the decision that says, okay, if they want it but they don't want to pay for it, do they really want it?
My opinion is that the town should be the funding source of last resort, not first resort.
So
And
you're
we've
no
proven
longer,
that before.
okay, so we wait till last resort. When
If
the
you need a
library's in
roof-
trouble.
If you need a roof, then
Well, I mean, plus, I mean,
If
you
it's
know,
in the
you
budget
know, you
cycle,
keep
we'd be in
mentioning,
good
you
shape.
keep mentioning the roof and whatnot, but you got
Right.
that grant with the 50,000 that went in there for major repairs.
right.
Right,
So I mean,
we've
you
set
got that,
aside for all
that's
those
separate,
things.
which is great. I mean, whoever did,
But-
whoever got that did a great job in getting that, because,
But you're saying
it kind
that's
of
not
takes,
how
it
we
kind of
should-
takes, it kind
We
of
shouldn't
takes.
do
a-
it that way. We
No,
should
I'm
spend the
saying
money.
that's absolutely, but, so you get that and the roof goes and you need 60,000 instead. The town has demonstrated in the past it's gonna help out some way to do that too.
If you
But I
need
mean, you've covered
So
part of that, but that's not what this increase is here.
strategic
That's not what
reserves-
this increase here is. This increase is to add additional
Correct.
salaries.
Correct. Or the lower amount, which we would not do.
The part that I hate, absolutely hate, is that you're making us the bad guys.
Right.
And
Why
that's
are
what
you
I
making
really
me the
have,
bad guy?
because you're telling us, give us $6,600 and then only give us this, give us $7,300 and we can do this. I feel like a bad guy if I say 60,000 on this one and I'm not giving increases in wages and I'm not giving increases per hours. I have a problem with that. So that's why I like the fact that we have the one number of whatever the 60,000 that the town said, and that's what you guys do as a library, figure out what you do with that money within your checkbook and stuff like that. But I feel like it's coming down to us that says,
Well, it is.
but I don't think that's
No,
fair.
it's
I don't
not.
think that's
It's-
fair at
what
all.
we're
It's a
asking you to
matter
do
of
is spend your own
opinion and
money.
perspective, and
No.
that's what we just had,
No,
so.
you spend your own money, is what we're asking you to consider doing.
And we've made a request.
Yeah.
You know my position on it, so I'll shut up.
Well, and I like,
You
again,
have a perspective, I have a perspective.
right.
If anybody else wants to jump in, please do.
Well, and then I think in this is I would really, really make sure that it's put out there that if something happened to the library, that they needed something like
You
that.
can't make that commitment.
That's why I said I would like to hope that that was the case, Sheila, because it's the town money coming together. But to come back and say, you either give us the hours or not, and we look like the bad guys in this, and I don't like
So
that.
you don't have control on the hours, they do. They can fund
Right.
it themselves, or they can choose not to fund it.
That's your opinion, thank you.
You've got the money in the bank
It's
to
your
do it.
opinion, sir.
You've got the money in the bank to do it.
It's your opinion.
Okay,
Okay, well,
moving along. Yes.
I'm sorry, I just,
Hi, Kevin.
I'm new, I'm new to the committee, just trying to understand everything. Are there forecasted repairs for?
Yes, we have a capital asset plan. We also have an investment plan that sets our investments to percentages of budget. All those things are in place. We began this journey actually when Marshall was on this committee, directing us to be a lot more judicious, do better planning, get a better source and perspective on our budget. We've done all those things. We've been writing grants to establish strategic reserves so we wouldn't have to come to the town and say, we need $40,000 for a roof. The money you see in those reserves are not going to pay for everything we need. We have a commitment within the budget to add to each of these things within the capital asset plan. The roof is gauged for 4 years. We still need to make that money and put it aside. Marshall disagrees with our approach,
I don't-
and that's
my
okay.
My personal funding isn't that way. I'm not gonna ask you for money when I've got it myself. You know, it doesn't-
That's your perspective, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, let her
Perspectives have been given.
I'm done.
Perspectives
Been
have
told
been
to shut
given.
up.
Yeah, shut up.
Let us continue.
You see what I mean?
Brian?
yeah, one last comment was just a couple things. One is on page 70, it does show an increase in the activity that's going on. I do think it's challenging these days to I mean, there is a logic that if there are more people using it, then there should be more money getting raised. But I do think they raise a fair amount of money themselves. The other comment I was just going to make is that a piece of this in either of the proposals goes to the realities of increasing minimum wage. And I was actually surprised to see that some of the levels of pay for the folks at the library are only marginally over minimum wage. And I think given the job that they do and the work that they do, you know, I hope that wherever both of our organizations end up in terms of that's kind of considered in as that reality of kind of increasing costs due to the increasing minimum wage, and therefore then the kind of up that happens. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, TIF. That's where we put the 100,000 for the first reserve on the
Evaluation.
future assessing.
Talked about it.
On the TIF, the salaries that are allocated to this particular budget area are for whom?
It's a part of Mary's salary, and it's
Oh.
for the work she does on planning and zoning.
Perfect. Thank you.
Are you gonna run down individual provider
No.
agencies like Milk Oil or anything, or you just gonna?
Now, if people have questions on that, they can,
How does the Hawthorne House end up into a TIF funding?
because the way that,
Because you
We
can
have-
get away
we
with
have-
it?
We have,
Basically.
we have what was, what I would call a soup to nuts TIF that's, has a
see?
very comprehensive, very broad spectrum TIF. And so therefore, when you have capacity within the TIF, almost anything fits. And so when we can, we do. Is that about it?
yep,
Soup to nuts TIF. So,
Okay.
yeah.
there were certain.
So you can slide certain things in when you, okay.
Well, you know, and the thing is, that it makes sense to if you
Within
can,
reason.
because that's,
Keeps
that
the money there.
essentially is, you know, it's in the budget, but it's not in the budget, so to speak. Because that's the money that we're collecting that's above and beyond the
Right.
assessed value on that from when it was set, when the TIF was created, so.
Is the LED conversion in here also? Is that what I'm seeing?
you're seeing some of that there. It'll be ultimately, once we get our investment grade audit, which we're waiting on now, and we did get more feedback today, not absolute timing, but it's moving along, as I like to say, with all deliberate municipal speed. So it's the towns of, Standish, Gorham, Wyndham, and Raymond. And so, we've identified the number of fixtures, and we have a price per fixture, and so we're going to get a comprehensive report, at which time the Board of Selectmen will, get a presentation and decide, stop or go. And so that's one potential way to do the LED program. The other is through Central Maine Power. We're also looking at that one. But to answer your question, some of it would be there, and if we went with real terms, some would be from the from the street light line. So I'm hopeful that we can do it as close to revenue neutral as possible because of the efficiency gains that you get from LEDs. You may have seen an article in the newspaper about that.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's moving along.
Is there a tri-town effort to do the same thing?
It's a four-town effort.
Four-town effort.
But it's actually, we're four towns together, but since we joined together, the towns of the Western Mountains asked if they could join us, and they did for a time, but then it made more sense for them to be another group because they were so far behind us. But the towns like Falmouth and Cumberland and that area, Yarmouth perhaps, they banded together, and so it seems like it's in clumps of 4 to 6 or so. There's some towns, even in Aroostook County, that have done it. So it's the thing, it's something that we're all looking at as ways to save energy and reduce costs, improve efficiency. So it's coming along. It's the thing to do.
Did you guys ever get back to the solar thing? Whatever happened to that?
Where we had a
I'm
presentation.
sorry, that's probably totally
Maria,
off.
is that one?
No, that's
Yeah,
still
we
public.
we had a presentation at the select board the other night. Their next step is to actually do a formal proposal.
Okay, so it won't be part of this
Oh, no.
budget, okay.
They said it may take almost a year.
Oh, no.
They've got to
There's
check
a
the
lot more to
structures
go
of the
through
buildings.
before they
Oh,
get-
yeah.
before it
It's a
gets to
long
that point.
process, yep.
Who do we rent hydrants from?
Portland Water District.
That's funny, I didn't even check that out.
What do we get to use them?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, how that works is that the original system, which we financed and paid for, of course, in its entirety, in part, of course, with the Community Development Block Grant. So you build it to their specifications under the supervision of their engineers that you pay for, with contractors that they approve, and then you turn it over to them and then lease back the hydrants from them. It's what I would call the Burger King model of construction and management. It's their way.
They do all the maintenance.
We're
on
never
it,
getting
correct?
out of that.
They do all the maintenance on it.
They do all the
And the
maintenance on it,
flushing and the
which-
testing and all that jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you're kind of balancing that against what
Don, how many hydrants are there?
Chief?
22 pressurized hydrants.
Is that right? That many?
So,
22, I believe, is the outside.
Wow.
And that's down the 302 corridor.
302, right? And Main Street, right?
Yeah, Main and up 85.
Ah.
Lane.
Okay. Thanks.
Different topic, but I don't know that number, but I should tell you, we talked about streetlights briefly. There are 69 ornamental streetlights. They will not be part of the conversion, only the 112 Cobra heads, because it's cost prohibitive to do our own ornamentals, because they're a total internal retrofit, and it was really expensive.
Yep.
So unfortunately, we won't be able to do those right now. We're gonna have to look at another day for that. And I wanted to show you I knew how many streetlights there were. Not hydrants.
Everyone's got their expertise, Don.
Thanks. Now I know how many hydrants there are for next year.
22.
Other questions on TIF? GA.
I'm the GA administrator now. Alice Hamilton, or at least temporarily, retired after several years of great service, and so it's going well so far. I've had one applicant and a couple 3 inquiries, and Sue Look has been assisting me, so we're doing that.
Where is it at, that other community fund that we have for town?
Say again?
Where's that other community fund? You said there's another
Oh,
community?
Raymond.
yes, the
Community assistance.
Community
fund.
Assistance Fund, Raymond Community Assistance Fund, thank you for bringing that up. That's privately donated monies that are available to help, as it was originally configured, to help the working poor who may not necessarily meet the very strict guidelines of general assistance, which is a program required under law. So this money I have greater flexibility with and can use in other ways, more innovative ways sometimes. That said, it most typically goes into fuel assistance. That's the typical need of people who are non-GA qualified but are needy.
And this gets reimbursement from the state at 70%?
The GA does, not the
GA
community
does.
assistance.
GA.
The community assistance relies totally on private giving. The general assistance is reimbursed partially from the state.
Okay, so we are talking about general assistance.
Yeah.
I thought it was 70, so you just,
72.
Can you just
No,
leave
we
it?
are talking about general
yeah. I know.
70, okay. We historically, when I first arrived here almost 20 years ago, the budget was $2,000. So, and I mean $2,000, you know how far $2,000 goes with rent or heating oil? So, $8,000 in today's dollars is not a lot of dollars. So we don't have, I think part of it is because of the housing, shortage of affordable housing. We don't have a lot of people who would meet the strict guidelines of general assistance. However, we do have a lot of people who are struggling, and the working poor, if you will. And so I think the community assistance has been a really great thing. And so I would encourage anybody who wants to contribute to that. It's still an active and going fund. And we were one of the first towns around to put that together a long time ago. And there are people who continue to contribute,
Oh, yeah, there's regular givers.
regular givers.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Which
Can
is
we
nice.
have their names and addresses?
Well, it came out of the
Library's looking.
the selectmen I don't remember the entire setup, but at the time the selectmen sort of challenged me on that, and I said, there's no free market for the poor, is what I said, I think, for some other similar catchy idea, that somehow that there wouldn't be, just people stepping up to give money. I was proven wrong. We put it out there, and we put it in the then Roadrunner, and said, here's the deal, what we'd like, and, consider us for your annual giving program, and so people did,
That's awesome.
and they do.
That's great.
So the people of Raymond are very generous.
That's great.
Anything else on GA? ERSU, no, we don't do that under there.
We do.
It's in our budget, in the overall budget, we don't. But I would recommend that people keep themselves up to speed on the budget development for the school that's ongoing now, and make sure you know when the hearings are and when the votes on that are.
There's
Because
a hearing tomorrow night. Could I just ask a general question with the withdrawal thing and all that going on? Would that have any impact on this budget year?
No.
No? Okay.
Only if they see the $50,000 for,
But
don't
that's,
you have an
but that's
account?
already in there.
That's already, we've already given
But
it.
unless you exceed that value, then you'd have to revisit the
Right.
table.
Right.
But no, I mean, that, in fact, it probably wouldn't affect it for 2 cycles.
Yeah, because it's 25 a year.
July 2021.
Employee benefits, employer benefits.
No employee,
Employee benefits. Oh, okay.
there's no R.
I know. Just see if you're paying attention.
I am.
We're still looking at that. Rolf and I are. And actually, we got we're trying to get some information out of Cross to look at, to compare it, to see if we could get apples to apples in comparing it to MMA. But one of the things that I did notice was that our plan that we have right now is not going to be offered come July 1, and the next closest plan had a 14% increase in it. So we might have to revisit insurance before your 23rd meeting. I had budgeted for about 8.
That's a
We,
lot.
we always have a lot of I mean, we do have some flexibility in that we never spend out our HRA,
Right, that's kind of where I'm looking at. it.
so that's
Is-
sort of,
Have you met the pick of it family? 'Cause you kind of do with us. Just saying.
so Rolf and I are working on looking at the health insurance.
That, not that, I guess it's that material, but that is one of the advantages of the MMA program, is that it tends to be stable year to year and decade to decade so far,
Because it's self-insured.
because it's self-insured. Right, but I'm just saying, self-insured, I'm just saying that's one of the benefits of it.
Yeah.
Cost is a detriment, but stability is a benefit.
I think that's hard for employees. They really do. They get new cards. They have to adjust to new insurance companies year to year. Yeah, that would be a downfall.
But on the other hand, if it's better coverage,
You'll do it. Yeah. Good. I'll take the better coverage.
Okay. P&C insurance. P&C workers' comp.
I think we had some, no, there was a definite increase in the, yeah, the workers' comp had, we had an increase in our premiums, plus our payroll rises every year. Workers' comp's, the starting point for that is your total payroll for a year. So I'm hoping that the 36,000 is gonna be enough for this year. The liability insurance, we might have to revisit that before April 24th too.
Does that include all the new plow trucks?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
I don't know if I got enough on there. I thought I was factoring it in, but I think that we had a little schism between the two of us because I was looking at it and I thought that's not enough. But it is, so it's something that I'm gonna look at again before we finish up.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think with that new equipment that we have for Public Works, that would be going up, if anything.
Right, yes, definitely,
We have better equipment and more equipment. both.
yes,
That's right.
all of the above.
Hey, the dreaded county tax.
Ralph's favorite.
Let's not speak about that anymore.
6.27.
Brian, do you have the correct figure in there?
On the county?
County tax.
Yeah, I had already written in 788, 368, I think.
That's what I wrote.
I got that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
6.27 increase.
yeah, overjoyed.
Yeah.
Debt service.
So are the 2013 and the 2015, are those 10-year bonds?
I think they were 12, 15.
More or longer, right?
I think they were 15, I wanna
15s?
say.
Okay. And then we also have a paving bond that's in the TIF, is that right? Or wasn't
There's
there?
no, that's all we have right now is the 15.
Oh, that's
The
it.
13, that's
Okay.
it. We paid up everything else
Wow,
last
great.
year.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the TIF is a 30-year TIF. The debt that was used to do the work down on 302 was only 20-year, and that ended up last year. That's how we ended up with
Okay.
moving the planning board and ZBA, those services, we took them out of community development to put them into the TIF last year because we did have excess capacity.
I think they were 15-year bonds, the,
Oh, you think so?
yeah, the original, the water line, the public safety building, I think were 15-year bonds.
Okay. Are we still paying on the TIF? No. We're done, that's what you're saying, we paid.
No, the TIF,
The debt that was
the TIF is
related
our
to the
fund.
TIF.
Is
We're paying
But the
some of the
debt on
bonds
that,
out
sorry.
of the TIF.
Yeah.
The debt that we used to improve the 302
Right.
is all paid off.
Okay.
That's all paid
So
off.
this is really our only debt, is right here.
Yeah.
There's no other places where we've got, wow. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, That's why we're still a AAA rated.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It is rather extraordinary, yes.
One of the things I like about this town, and I see this kind of time and time again, is that sometimes people go, great, we just retired something, let's go get something. And I think we were much smarter about that, and we really do kind of say, it's not like somebody just, now we can fill the piggy bank back up, and I think that's great.
Let's see.
There you go.
CIP, we already went through. What do we have left? Revenues?
Could I raise one issue, Mr. Chairman? One thing that was not in the original budget, but we did manage to get back on the agenda was the Southern Maine Agency on Aging, that $500.
We haven't hit provider agencies yet. We haven't hit provider agencies yet.
Oh, okay. Even though we,
I thought
okay.
I thought we were through the book. I was about ready to go.
No.
Okay, back to the book. Tapped it out.
We like to move the goalpost.
Maybe you can give us page and paragraph there, Mr. Ross.
He's so technical. Why no? It doesn't exist. You're so funny on this. Where's provider agencies at?
I don't know, provider. We've done this ad
Oh, okay.
There is no
revenues. Any questions on revenues?
What page is that?
It's,
Revenues.
Very
page
beginning.
It's page 6 on the bottom. It's page 6.
See, this is where,
On the top it says page 24. On the bottom it says page 6.
the snowmobile people learning.
On what,
Huh?
what page?
That's snowmobile reimbursement.
No, that's snowmobile registrations.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
that's the
Okay,
one
that's
we're
what that
talking
is.
about. Yeah.
That's where I came up with the 2105 and 16 cents.
Yep.
Don't ask me why.
We take what
Oh.
they give.
One quick question. I know there's some airplanes in town. I don't see any airplane excise tax. Is that because it's managed differently or in a different place, or do we just not tax those?
No, we do when somebody comes in and
One person was like $10.
needs their sticker.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that?
I think he's in Casco, though. I know that plane.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he's in Casco.
Well, then he can't register it
I
here.
don't know where
Who's got the airplane?
Is it? Yeah, but
It's
is
a
it
little
where their
small
residence
plane.
is, or
Oh.
where they have it?
Two-seater.
Oh.
Where they have it hangared?
A small
Right.
two-seater.
That's a good
No.
question. I believe it's where they have it hanging.
I would suspect it's where it's hangared, not where their residence
Oh,
is.
because we're
Helicopter.
Well, if you want to turn them in, we will do something about it.
Right by Fry Island Landing.
It used to
Let's
be that
start
this,
up with Fry Island
it
again.
used to be this that the state would send you a list of all of the airplanes that and where they were housed in your town, and they don't do that anymore.
We'll
So,
do something about it.
like I said, if you want to turn somebody in, we'll do what we can.
Give me the money.
From a
Give me the
standpoint,
money.
but from a standpoint of the assessor, I'm assuming the assessor is aware of a building, for example, that houses a plane.
Maybe a really big boat.
I wouldn't even comment. I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know that they actually have to be. I mean, they could simply be tethered. They don't have to be in a building.
Or they can be on the water, or a float plane.
If it's a
Exactly.
float plane, yeah.
Yeah.
Or they
Well-
can be in a nondescript barn that, they don't have,
Okay.
they haven't got an interior inspection on.
But you talk about the assessor, that's a good point, because I know one of the things that I was questioning is what the code enforcement's gonna be doing as far as the waterfront, and they have worked out a great plan. Dawn and him and Bruce have worked out, and the waterfront district, so they can check the areas around. So that could be,
I think it'd be great. I mean, to have every so often do a check of kind of like, oh, here's a building that wasn't here before. type
they
stuff.
have to, because there's been, before,
Yeah.
when Chris was here, there was quite a few violations on the water.
Teresa thought we should get like a 14-foot boat, but we're gonna get a seaplane instead.
Well,
Is there training for that?
Dawn thought
sure
it'd
you-
be
make-
really
make sure you figure
inconspicuous to
out-
have that big boat show up that
Helicopter
you guys
on board.
have.
Yeah, that's right.
The drone.
Okay, we must be getting close to the end then.
Yeah.
You have to register those
Other questions on revenues?
dollars.
Okay, provider agencies.
Do you have a page on that, or are they kind
No,
of
there
distributed
wasn't.
through ever? Okay. I think they're kind of distributed around. I think a bunch of them are in the chip.
Actually, if you look on the second page of your index,
You'll see all the provider
You'll see all the
details.
provider agencies, and we've covered some of them already. We covered RTP, Raven Baseball, Softball, Rattlers.
Legion was part of
Raven
it, too.
Rec,
That was
Village
part of
Library.
that. I mean, the only ones that really weren't picked up through there would have been
The ones that aren't
Hawthorne was picked up.
MMA, or not MMA. SMA.
SMA, yeah.
And you said SMAA. Okay.
He said MMA first. Really cute.
And they're requesting dollars worth $500, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
I also did a little bit of math on their request. And if you take in general the number of service units, like the number of calls, the number of classes, the number of meals, and break it down that way, that comes up to 965 service units. And that we'd be paying 52 cents per assist. And I think I quoted last time, just looking at the meals alone, like 786 or 7 or whatever that was, we'd be paying 63 cents a meal to feed people here in Raymond for that money.
So this, you're using a $500 as a numerator there.
Yes, that's all, because that's all they're asking.
The problem I have with $500 numerator is their overhead expenses are 66%. So your numerator really isn't 500, it's 107.
But wasn't the 66 the salary?
Administrative.
Their
Correct.
salaries and benefits.
63%.
63% of their overall budget.
Yes, but you have to look
Time,
at the
please.
type of salary.
Time, please. If you look at Seniors Plus in Lewiston, same category, same type of business, their administration is 28%.
Do they service Raymond?
Yes, no, they don't. Androscoggin and Oxford County.
Exactly.
No, it's company to company.
No,
The other one is United Way is 24% on their administration. So something is wrong with
But-
SMAA.
But
Just
isn't,
from an administration
I think you're using the word administration as a similarity to salary.
standpoint, which it is.
It is.
Well,
It's
but a
overhead.
social worker, would the social worker's salary be included in that number?
Yes, she said that.
But that person's providing services. That's not, to me, in my mind, that's not overhead. That's somebody who's providing a service, sitting down with a person who has a loved one and saying, how do I go about managing this person? Or an administrator who's overseeing the Meals on Wheels program where they're using, I think it was 600 volunteers. I think that's very different than a person who's true overhead, which is, I would agree, the president or whomever it is, the chairman or whatever they refer to, the executive director or something like that. That's an overhead position. A marketing position, I consider that overhead. But people that are actually delivering services, I think to call them administration, it's not an accurate description of what they're doing. They're providing those services.
Okay, so take that then. Even if you take those out of there, those people, the counselors that are taking it, that's still high. She came in and I think she said there was 150 people on a waiting list right now for meals, and only 40%, I think is what it was. To me, you got to look at your business and go, oh my gosh, if something is wrong. And I know years back, United Way was in the same situation. People are donating and the money's actually going towards the administration instead of where it's supposed to be. So to me, there's something wrong when you got 63%. Not that, I talked to Kathy about this, there's a lot of services that are offered, but I think they can revamp that somehow to be able to turn around and say, okay, somewhere it's top heavy. It's very top heavy as far as money goes.
What
And
other
again,
option do Raymond residents have though?
Well, that's
I would like to
exactly-
put money into our own program here.
Put it, localize this money. Whether
Yes.
it goes into community
I
or-
would feel better if we took $1,000 and put it into that community fund.
Yeah.
But
And
who's gonna deliver Meals on Wheels in Raymond
Let-
They
with
do,
that
so-
Let
$1,000?
them charge us back for
With
that.
that $1,000, who's going to volunteer to bring meals?
No, what I'm saying
Well-
is put that in there and let them charge us back for it.
All right,
If they're saying the
So we
incremental
did.
cost to do those is this much, say, fine. You delivered 10 meals, charge us the 50 cents.
They're 50 cents, right?
but that Meals
Or
on
the
Wheels,
21
we don't
If we
know.
put 500 in,
Yeah.
500's not getting to the bottom line to give them, to give $500 more meals out there.
I think
That's
you
the
guys are,
problem.
I'm sorry, but I've got to go back to this. I think you're confusing people, so if you look at the things they do, 40 Raymond residents received assistance through the agency's information and resource program staffed by resource specialists and social workers.
But take them out of it. Take them out of it. I still think you have
What do you mean take
I
them
mean
out of
take
it?
them out of it as far as their salaries go, because that seems
So-
to be the issue for you. And give them their salaries.
Okay,
I
so-
get that, but there's still, you got to admit, at least a good big chunk
How do you know
on
that?
overhead.
How do you know how much is
don't
left?
know.
after you
I'm
take
not
all those people out?
comfortable paying something like that, and we're not even guaranteeing that that $500 that we do donate goes into our Raymond people.
What goes into foods at least?
Well,
No.
so the next thing is 22 residents received Medicare and other insurance counseling. So there's somebody who has to provide that counseling. If you say that that's not a valuable service, I get that, but someone has to deliver counseling. The next people, they're getting guidance about their caregiving role through the Family Caregiver Support Program.
I think what we're saying here, Brian, is that we would be much more prudent and get much more value for putting money directly into the town of Raymond rather than going through a third-party distribution system.
So if you look at what they delivered, 18,000, and you can, I'm sure you can debate this number, but even if you were to have $18,000 worth of value, they're asking us for $500. That's a 36x return, and I'm wondering, for us to do that, who's going to do it? Where are you going to find the volunteers that are going to manage this? Who's going to provide the meals?
Who's
They're-
going
they
to
continue
guarantee
to
that it's going
provide-
to Raymond?
I'm sorry?
Who's going to guarantee it comes to Raymond for those people?
Because it is
she said-
already coming to Raymond.
Well, but she said there's a certain waiting list too, and I'm trying to understand what she also said too is they're put on a list a certain way, and they can only come off of that list.
The rules are you can't
Just the
move
way-
people off because of the federal funding of that program. They can't, once they're on the list, they're guaranteed to have that spot until somebody comes off.
Okay.
They're already
This is-
service, here's the key. This goes back to the point I made at the beginning of the meeting. Is Raymond the kind of town that pays their fair share? And this to me is a place that question comes up. Because they are already providing these services. You're asking, how will we know if our $500 is coming to Raymond? The answer is, we don't have to give them $1. And Raymond residents are still going to get the services. They're already doing it. They're asking for support. And frankly, I'm embarrassed that all they asked for was $500 when the average amount that they get from each town is $3,000. Wyndham, I think, gives $9,000 to these folks. I think if you're looking at the administrative number, 66% as overhead, you're missing what they do for services.
Let me be clear on the word administration expense. Salaries and benefits only. Not talking about building, not talking about insurances, anything. Salaries and benefits only. 66% in Scarborough, 28% in Lewiston. I can't justify it.
Does Lewiston provide these same services?
Yes, they do.
Apples to apples.
Exactly.
All right.
Look at them, $9.90.
But-
Seniors
more
Plus,
than-
I will look at what they provide.
Seniors Plus, Lewiston.
And how much does Lewiston provide to Seniors Plus?
Not the question we're asking. How much does the county contribute to Southern Maine Agency on Aging?
0. We asked.
How much does GP cog contribute to Southern Maine Agency on Aging?
So Raymond would like to
Zero
be,
is the answer.
so Raymond would like to take on providing these services to
No,
its
that's
residents.
not what we said. What I said is I would prefer to put money in our fund and have them bill us if they deliver extra meals here.
Is that possible? Can they do that?
I didn't think they had the capacity to increase meals.
Because that would increase administration. We'd have to have a billing clerk.
No, we wouldn't.
I'm not seeing anything on Meals on Wheels. What I see them providing at Seniors Plus is Aging and Disability Resource Center, an EIM care coordination, which is a statewide service.
State funded?
It's in there, because I've taken advantage of it.
The SPLLC is a fiscal intermediary service that they provide, and a waiver
Third party.
services provider. Those are the 4 things that they show on their website.
serve meals.
No, they don't serve meals.
No, they do
don't
serve it,
provide
because I have a,
counseling.
Those are the four things they have as their services. Now, I'm not saying that they don't, I'm just saying,
no, I
I
tell you,
think we
they
might
do,
be doing,
because I have a person that I'm involved with that takes advantage of that system.
and has meals delivered?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, then, it's not on their site, so I don't know how that's coming about.
Okay.
They probably work with.
So I'm going to go back to the thing that I said before, which is I really hope that the select board will, actually I'd ask the town to look into our ability to write the warrant articles where the select board decides and deems that it's appropriate in such a way that we could have two different amounts recommended by the two independent groups that are overseeing the two elected groups that are in this town. One is the Budget Finance, one's the select board. Then we can have the debates on some of these things, like this one, with the townspeople, where they can have some input on how their money should be spent.
Brian, can I interrupt you just a second?
Yeah.
I found it right down here.
What was that?
I found it. It says our aging and disability experts can help you plan for the future, connect with resources and supports that are available in your community, learn about healthy aging and active living, and support your needs from Medicare counseling to Meals on Wheels to caregiver support groups and education.
Right, they serve as the intermediary to get to the actual delivery.
Right, but what I'm
service.
saying is he couldn't find that, and it's just under seniors+.org it came up under.
All right, I can show you what I'm looking at. It's probably a different one than what you've got, because you're on a
It
mobile
sounds
thing,
like
but I'm
they
not.
subscribe to Meals on Wheels, though.
Exactly.
They may call it the same thing. Yeah, actually the same thing.
Meals on Wheels is a centralized operation, we all know that, right?
Right,
Just
exactly.
It goes through a distribution.
And
through
the
Southern
difference in services is, you're absolutely right. Southern Maine Area Agency provides its staff to do many of these things themselves, along with a huge volunteer cadre. Seniors Plus appears to be the intermediary to get their folks to all these services.
No, it's
That's
a
a very, well, that's, we have different opinions, Marshall. So again, those are quantitatively and qualitatively a little bit different. But again, the argument still remains. The select board obviously feels that the management of Southern Maine Area Agency would preclude our participation in these programs.
No, we don't.
You
feel-
don't
I
like,
feel
you
that.
don't like the way I present it? That's my perspective. You have a perspective.
I feel that we're not getting a value for a dollar when it's being chewed up with salaries.
So all the services that were provided in Raymond last year to all of these Raymond residents are not worth $500
I
to
didn't
you.
say that. I said we're not getting our value.
The
We're looking
for
value.
$500
We're
bucks,
trying to come up with an alternative value. One of them would be to throw money into the community assistance fund.
Who's
We would want
to help
gonna-
lower income or working poor.
Yeah.
That's gonna
Help us see.
replace that value from SMOG. You're comparing
This
apples
is
and
primarily
oranges.
people that are doing counseling and stuff. I don't know how $500 would get you to a few days of counseling for people. I don't understand how that would possibly work.
It's not what I'm saying.
Yeah,
What I'm
but
saying
Okay,
is we're not getting value
let's,
from
you know,
it.
let's boil this back into, the whole presentation here was, this $500 was gonna get more Meals on Wheels into the town.
Right.
End of statement. That's what the
No.
statement that was,
No.
yeah. That's what the statement that was made. The $500 was gonna get us more, because the reason they were coming here is because they had people on the waiting list for Meals on Wheels. That's what the presentation was at one
I
point.
asked that question.
I don't
That
think that
didn't
was part
even
of the
come up until
presentation.
I asked the question about the waiting list, Ralph. So that was not their presentation. And we can go back to the video record.
As a matter of
It
fact,
was not
I
the
watched it this
presentation.
afternoon, and you were the one who brought up that question, and until she brought it up, that had not been covered in the presentation. It
Period.
had not been covered in the presentation. I feel confident enough to put $1,000 on the table right now if you'd like to bet it.
Well, put it in the.
So
put it in the-
again,
Maybe do that.
we see value differently. That's, and
So I just go
that's
back,
what we're
I
here
just go
for.
back to, Mr. Chair, can we please have the town look into how we can write warrant articles so that hopefully, and this would be again up to the select board, and I understand that, but that ultimately the townspeople can have two different amounts presented to them.
The
that they
townspeople
make
can have
decisions.
2 different amounts. The amount the select board recommends and a lower amount if the budget committee comes in with a second.
Can we have the town look to
No,
see if
that's
there's
an open warrant article, but that is not what the town issues. It issues closed
Why,
warrant
why
articles.
So-
can't, why could the town not have an open warrant article? Is there
Because
anything
it's an
legally that
appropriation.
allows us not to do it?
It's an appropriation. You cannot do that on appropriations. You can do it on roads and other stuff, but you can't do it on appropriations. You can't do it at the state level or federal level.
I would respectfully like to get a legal opinion on this to say that that's not possible to do.
Does anybody know of another organization that would possibly be
Can we just
able-
stay on this for a
Well,
moment?
I know,
I'd like
but we
to get an
were
answer.
back on this one. That's what we were back on, is
Okay,
the
then I'll
meals
come
and
back
meals,
to,
the
I'll come back to my
SMAA.
discussion afterwards.
It is.
Not in
on the
Cumberland County,
Well, that's what I'm asking, is to see
No.
if there's anything in our area.
other
they-
than
I'm trying to find
towns
a middle
themselves taking
ground.
over this.
Right.
Okay.
You know, for example, in Wyndham, the age-friendly Wyndham is now going to be a town committee, and ultimately, you know, that's the direction they've chosen to go. But there's no other agencies out there. There's a lot of smaller bits and pieces, you know, but
Okay.
no other agency with that breadth of services, no.
Nope, just looking to do a middle line, I guess.
There's got to be a better way than throwing money into that.
Okay. Moving right along.
So please, let's not move right along. Can I please have a request? I don't know how I do this, but what do I do? Who do I go to ask that I respectfully get a legal assessment of what is allowable as the way the warrants can be written for the town meeting?
You can go to the
I
main
don't want yours,
statutes.
Rob.
You can
Rob,
go to the main
respectfully.
statutes under closed articles. It's very clear under there what it says.
So how did we end up in a closed article? Is that something the select board chose to do? Because I remember in my earlier days at town meeting, there were two. Budget Finance recommends this, select board recommends that.
Not as long as I've remembered, it hasn't been above. It's always been, never been up.
Never been above.
Never been
There was a
higher.
guy
No,
that's.
no, no,
oh,
I'm not
yeah.
saying that. I'm not saying that, but there were two amounts
Right. One-
recommended. So, again, what we find ourselves in a position is when you decide zero, that's the end of the discussion.
So how can we be an independent second opinion to this town as a board?
Because if you look at your charge, it's to review financial and warrant articles given from the select board.
Then why are we doing all this? Why don't we just wait till you give us the answers?
I don't understand why we go through
We'll be
this
just
entire
as
process.
informed. We'll be as informed when we see the warrant articles, instead of coming in cold.
How do I go about making sure, Ralph, what you're saying, and it's not that I don't trust you, but I just want to make sure that there's not a misunderstanding about how warrant articles can be written? How do I go about doing
I
it?
gotta say, the person that has written most of the ordinances in this town and everything
there.
else is right
No,
here.
Not most of them, no.
Well,
That's
I know
fine,
it
but
can
it's
never be
possible he could have a
raised.
misconception.
You're right,
is my
you're
only
right.
point.
What's not on the paper?
So
you
I
can't
would like to
remember.
respectfully ask for the town to go to our legal, whoever we have as legal advice, and I'm sorry to spend money on this, but I think this is critically important. This goes about how the town goes about doing business, and I believe that there are enough people in this town that feel the way that I do on certain points that I'd like to give them that say, if possible. And to also have them say, you got your head up, you're wherever, Brian. That's not the way I feel at all, which would be also helpful. But we're getting to a place now where the town meeting essentially has no one coming to it. And part of the reason is when people try to raise questions at the town, they are told to essentially sit down and be quiet.
I don't believe that at all.
Well, ask Marley then about how she felt.
No, do you know what's really bad? It was our last meeting.
Ask her, she's dead.
That was really bad.
Which meeting?
Our last meeting that we had here with some of the comments that were being made. I mean, people, you weren't
Are
here.
we talking about a select
Are
board
we
or
getting
the
back to
budget
budget
committee?
related questions?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry,
Thank you.
I apologize. Not you.
So how do I go about doing this? I guess I look to you, Mr. Chair, or do I look to our chair? Do I look to the town manager? Where do I request this?
If I were in your shoes, I would take a look at the budget finance ordinance as written in 1975. Take a look at the town charter as written, and then take a look at the main statutes. And then if you are not satisfied that you can, your answer is there, then I would formally request the town to spend legal fees on it. But I would do my homework first.
Okay, I'll do that.
I would do that.
Ralph, can you clarify something?
Yep.
And maybe, Brian, this would appease. Is there a way that at town meeting or when the warrant is written, and I'm just throwing numbers out just on this situation, the select board recommends 500, 1,000. The budget finance recommends 2,000. Even though that number is higher, but it's what this board would recommend, can it be written like that?
It could be written like that, but if the motion was made, it would be an illegal motion.
But the budget finance number would be higher.
But if the motion was made on the floor to that article at that higher figure, it would be an illegal motion, and the moderator of the meeting would not be able to accept it.
But it would let the town's residents know that the budget finance committee felt it needed a higher number on it.
Or we can not recommend their number, and then they can ask us why,
Yeah.
Which we have done in the past.
which we have done in the past.
Yeah, but we know that there's, I do know
But it's not
this,
a
you can't, whatever's in the warrant, you cannot get an increase in that number, period.
Right, but it would show that this committee chose
It's
to
a-
have
No,
a
it's an
higher
interesting
number.
point, that's an
Yeah.
interesting point.
It's
At
an
least if we
interesting-
could have the dialogue, then it might
Budget
foster the
Finance
dialogue.
Committee disagrees.
Or just does
period.
not recommend.
Could that happen?
And then
As I say,
that
the
would
motion
raise the
could not
questions.
be, the motion could not be made because it would become an illegal motion, because it violates the rules of the warrant. And therefore, the moderator could not accept that as a motion. He could only accept the motion at the lower figure, at the
Yeah, but
figure, at
if
that
the
figure.
budget, the select board recommends whatever number, and we just said Budget Finance Committee disagrees, we can do that without a number at all.
That-
What you do is you
That happened
you
last
can
year.
say that you do not agree.
That happened
Do not
last year
recommend.
with,
Yeah, you know, we can, the budget,
regarding the town
the
$75,000
budget
for the
committee could
selectmen.
not recommend an article.
Yep.
That's in your purview.
And then those questions will be asked, why doesn't the Budget Finance Committee recommend? Not that the number could change, but it would raise
Well,
awareness
If
of what,
if it didn't pass,
Good
it would have
problem
to go
solving.
back through the
but
process.
it would raise awareness, at least for the next budget cycle.
It's a good, Diana, thank you, that's great. I'll look into this, and I'll take Selectman Bullock's advice to look through those things and see, but my guess is I'll probably find that that's gonna be a dead end, so maybe we can do that.
Yeah, but I would do that for you.
Okay. Other
I
comments?
don't know the answers. That's not
What are we commenting on? Oh, SMA,
Are these still?
that's where we started,
Yeah, we're still on,
provider
private
agency.
agencies, correct? Are you
The
wrapping
only,
things
the only
up?
one that we had was, that was on
As a matter, okay.
that was in play.
So are you asking for public comment right now?
Are we there?
I would think.
Yes.
Yes.
We did parks.
Check them all.
Yeah.
Public, the
That's
only
great.
publics we have. Oh, look it, we do.
Kathy Goslin, 11 Eagles View Drive. I'm the fire rescue deputy chief. Just 2 comments. If we join MMA, there is a $2,000 grant every year for fire departments. You don't automatically get it, but it's fairly easy to get. So that's $2,000 off that $7,500 cost. My other comment as the rescue chief, Southern Maine Agency on Aging, you know, I heard what the selectmen say, but I can tell you in the field, when we're at our patient's house, that is one of the recommendations that we make to them when they have questions. Here's an agency that will answer those questions, call them. So we do give out that information.
Thank you, Kathy.
Let me ask one question. Kathy, have you ever followed up on those people that have said, yeah, call? Have you ever followed
I know
up?
some of them have gotten Meals on Wheels because of it
Okay.
and stuff, so yeah, some of them have. You know, we know
Was
they
there a
use them
time
and they
delay,
come
or
back.
Was there a time delay?
I couldn't tell you on the time delay. I know that quite a few of our patients that we see on a regular basis do get Meals on Wheels, but I know a lot of them have used them for insurance questions.
Thank you, Kathy.
Lee Walker, 12 Rolfe Road, Raymond, Maine, library treasurer. I just wanted to clarify some things. I know that the library, and this is about the library, they, when someone is new into the town, the library is kind of one of the places that anybody of any age can come and connect with the community, which is one of the things that I feel is so important about the library. I just want to clarify about how the select board, when in the presentation we had asked, what do you want the library to be? And so our proposal was to expand the hours of our staff so we could increase our programming to hit the areas that we are not able to currently serve given the hours that we have for the staff, that to do more programming and to be able to do more work with those age groups, we would need to have more time with those employees. So the first question is, do you feel that we are doing a good job and that is the right direction for us to go in? I recognize that and respect that the town gives us a good portion of our funding, and so we do listen to you. We pay attention to the feedback that we get, and we try to execute the things that people are asking us to do. So my first question would be for people maybe to, at some point, if not now, or if now, that's great, to give me some feedback on that. And the other one is on the financial end, how much money should we have in reserve? I was hearing that we were spending too much money, not us specifically, but that the library at one point was, and we weren't financially stable, so we worked really hard, and we've gotten these grants, and we're trying to shore up our finances so that if something happens to our roof or we need to replace our heat pumps, that we have that funding in place. And I can tell you from the accounting that I do every day that if we move that increase in payroll, or even just to cover the increase in the funding for our current employees because of the minimum wage, that we will eat into those reserves. It's going to happen, which is fine. That's what I'm hearing you guys tell me. So my question is, what's the right amount of reserve? Because right now we have too much money, before we didn't have enough. So I'm trying to figure out where are we supposed to be so that we come to you at an appropriate time and ask you for appropriate amounts of money, because we don't want to feel like we're not doing a good job. We work really hard, we're all volunteers, and I just need that guidance.
I don't think we answered during public comment, do we? Or do we?
It is public comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Sorry,
So-
that's why I didn't
so
want you to
those
think that
are-
we weren't answering
No,
you.
that's fine. So those are questions that I would have, and if at the time, I have both committees here, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to put it out tonight. If there's a better time for me to come and get that kind of feedback, that's great. If you want to do it by email, that's great. But I know if I just come to a Board of Selectmen meeting, I might not get everybody else's feedback as well, or maybe that's the right place for me to do it, which is
I
fine.
know we're not supposed to comment, but I like that you just put that all out there, so. Yeah.
So no comment.
We can't, sorry.
Okay, okay.
Selectmen's comment?
Go forward.
Budget finance comment? I'd like to-
I think we've all had a very,
This end, we've exhausted our time.
very intense, and that's the reason for a workshop. So,
I'd like to remind all members that the next meeting to discuss the budget review will actually be the presentation of the warrant article review by the Board of Selectmen on April 23rd. That meeting is at 6:30. And then following that, the Budget Finance Committee will vote on the budget warrant articles presented by the Select Board on April 30th. That meeting as well at 6:30. I have nothing else.
I do have a question. So, why do we need the April 30th meeting? Because we
Because
can't change.
they have to develop the warrant articles for our meeting. So they meet, they decide the values, and they create the warrant articles that we review at our meeting. And we would either approve or do not.
Oh, okay. So that's our opportunity to disagree.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kevin.